When janitor Marcus Williams overheard executives planning to hide toxic waste before a $2 billion merger, he faced an impossible choice: stay silent and keep his job to pay for his sick daughter's treatment, or speak up and risk losing everything to save thousands of innocent lives. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus Williams pushed his cleaning cart down the marble hallway of Sterling Industries, the wheels squeaking softly in the silence of the empty corporate tower. At 38, his hands were already weathered from years of mopping floors and scrubbing toilets, but his eyes still held the fire of a man who refused to give up. The photograph in his wallet showed a smiling 8-year-old girl with pigtails, his daughter Emma. She was the reason he worked double shifts, the reason he swallowed his pride every day, the reason he endured the dismissive looks from executives who saw him as invisible. Just furniture, he muttered to himself, remembering how the CEO had once walked right through him in the hallway without so much as a glance. That's all we are to them. But Marcus had something they didn't know about. He had ears and he had been listening. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when Marcus heard the voices coming from the conference room on the 45th floor. He'd been cleaning the executive washroom when two men walked past, talking in hushed but urgent tones. "The environmental reports are buried deep," said a voice Marcus recognized as CFO Richard Blackstone. "The factory dumping in Ohio? If that comes out after we sign the deal, we're talking about lawsuits that could bankrupt us." "Henderson Industries doesn't know?" asked the other man, VP of Operations Jim Crawford. "Not yet. But they will eventually. We need to close this $2 billion merger before they discover the contamination. Once the papers are signed, it becomes their problem." Marcus's blood ran cold. He knew Henderson Industries. They were the company that employed half his old neighborhood, including his brother-in-law Tony. 2,000 families depended on those jobs. "What about the cancer rates near the Ohio plant?" Crawford continued. "Plausible deniability," Blackstone replied. "We've kept the medical reports separate from the financial documents. They'll never connect the dots in time." Marcus pressed himself against the wall, his heart pounding. They were talking about people's lives like they were numbers on a spreadsheet. The next morning, Marcus couldn't concentrate on his work. Emma's school had called. She needed $2,000 for a special medical procedure for her asthma. The insurance wouldn't cover it, and Marcus had already borrowed against his next 3 paychecks. He thought about what he'd overheard. If he spoke up, he'd lose his job for sure. No one would hire a janitor who spied on executives. But if he stayed silent, thousands of people would suffer. During his lunch break, Marcus sat in his rusted Honda Civic, staring at a business card he'd found in a conference room trash can months ago. Investigative reporter Sarah Chin from the Metro Herald. He kept it, not knowing why. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Dad, the doctor says if I don't get the treatment soon, my breathing might get worse. I'm scared." Marcus closed his eyes and made his choice. Marcus didn't call the reporter. Not yet. First, he decided to give Sterling Industries a chance to do the right thing. He'd worked there for 5 years, always been reliable, always kept his head down. Maybe, just maybe, they'd listen. He waited until CEO Jonathan Sterling was alone in his office, then knocked on the door. "What is it?" Sterling barely looked up from his papers. "Mr. Sterling, sir, I need to talk to you about the Henderson deal." Now Sterling looked up, his eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" Marcus's voice shook, but he pressed on. "I know about the Ohio factory. The contamination. The medical reports. If you sign that deal, you'll be destroying innocent lives." Sterling's face turned red. "You little weasel. You've been eavesdropping?" "I was just cleaning, sir. I couldn't help but overhear." "Get out." Sterling's voice was deadly quiet. "Get out before I have security remove you." "Mr. Sterling, please. Those are real people." "Out." Marcus left the office, his hands trembling. He tried to do it the right way. Sarah Chin was skeptical at first. A janitor calling about corporate malfeasance? She'd heard it all before. But something in Marcus's voice made her listen. "I have copies," Marcus said, sitting across from her in a dimly lit diner. "I've been taking photos of documents left in conference rooms, emails printed and thrown away. I never thought I'd need them, but—" He slid a manila envelope across the table. Sarah's eyes widened as she flipped through the contents. This is huge," she whispered. "Do you understand what you're risking?" Marcus nodded. "I understand what I'm risking if I don't do this. My daughter, she's sick. The insurance won't cover her treatment. But there are kids in Ohio who are sick too, and nobody's looking out for them." Sarah studied his face. "They'll come after you hard for this. Sterling Industries has lawyers who eat people like you for breakfast. I know, Marcus said quietly. But I also know what it's like to watch your child struggle to breathe. I won't let that happen to other families if I can prevent it. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah worked around the clock to verify Marcus's information. She contacted environmental scientists, obtained medical records, and interviewed families living near the Ohio plant. The story that emerged was heartbreaking. Cancer rates in the area were 300% higher than the national average. Children were developing respiratory problems. The groundwater was contaminated with chemicals that Sterling Industries had been dumping for over a decade. Meanwhile, Marcus continued working his shifts, pretending nothing had changed. But he noticed things: security cameras that seemed to follow him, supervisors who suddenly appeared wherever he was working, whispered conversations that stopped when he walked by. They know, he told Sarah during one of their clandestine meetings. They know I'm the source. We're almost ready to publish, Sarah assured him. Just hold on a little longer. It was Friday afternoon when CFO Blackstone cornered Marcus in the basement supply room. You think you're smart, don't you? Blackstone's voice was cold as ice. You think you can play with the big boys? Marcus straightened his shoulders. I think I can do what's right. Right? Blackstone laughed bitterly. You want to know what's right? Right is providing jobs for thousands of people. Right is keeping this company profitable so people like you can feed their families. You're about to destroy all of that. I'm about to save lives, Marcus replied. Your daughter needs expensive medical treatment, doesn't she? Blackstone's smile was cruel. Funny thing about insurance companies, they find all sorts of reasons to deny claims. Especially when the policyholder is unemployed. Marcus felt his stomach drop. You can't. I can and I will. Unless you call off your little newspaper friend and forget everything you think you heard. That night, Marcus sat in Emma's hospital room, watching her sleep with an oxygen mask over her small face. The latest attack had been severe. The doctor said she needed the treatment immediately or risk permanent lung damage. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The story runs tomorrow. Last chance to back out. But I understand if you need to protect your family. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. In the bed beside him, Emma stirred. Dad? Her voice was muffled by the mask. I'm here, sweetheart. Are you sad? You look sad. Marcus brushed a tear from his eye. I'm just thinking about some important decisions, baby. Mom used to say that doing the right thing is hard sometimes, but it's still right. Marcus's heart broke. Emma's mother had died in a car accident 3 years ago, but she'd left behind a daughter who somehow understood the world better than most adults. She was right, Marcus whispered. She was always right. The Metro Herald's front page headline read, Toxic Cover-Up. Sterling Industries hides contamination before $2 billion merger. Sarah's story was devastating. It detailed the environmental damage, the health impacts, the deliberate concealment of evidence. But what made it truly powerful were the personal stories: families destroyed by illness, children fighting for their lives, a community poisoned by corporate greed. The reaction was immediate. Henderson Industries pulled out of the merger within hours. Sterling Industries' stock price plummeted. Federal investigators launched a probe. Class action lawsuits were filed. Marcus watched the news coverage from his apartment, Emma curled up beside him on the couch. The people on TV seem angry, Emma observed. They should be, Marcus said. Sometimes anger is the right response to injustice. His phone rang. It was his supervisor. Don't bother coming in Monday, the voice was curt. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Marcus hung up without saying a word. The Sterling Industries Board of Directors convened an emergency meeting. The boardroom was tense, filled with angry investors and furious executives. This is a disaster, board member Patricia Hawthorne declared. We're facing billions in lawsuits. The EPA is crawling all over our facilities. The merger is dead. CEO Jonathan Sterling sat at the head of the table, his face pale. We need to find the leak. Someone gave that reporter access to confidential documents. We know who it was, Blackstone interjected. Marcus Williams. Night shift janitor. I've already had him terminated. A janitor? Board chairman Robert Mitchell looked incredulous. A janitor brought down a $2 billion deal? The question is, Hawthorne continued, what do we do now? Do we fight this in court? Do we try to discredit the story? Sterling was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice hollow. I want to see him. Sir? Blackstone looked confused. I want to see Marcus Williams. Bring him here. Marcus arrived at Sterling Industries that evening, escorted by security. He'd been told that CEO Sterling wanted to speak with him personally. As he entered the boardroom, he saw the entire board of directors seated around the massive mahogany table. Sterling stood at the head of the table, his expensive suit wrinkled, his hair disheveled. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. "Sit down, Mr. Williams," Sterling said quietly. Marcus remained standing. "I'd rather stand, sir. Do you know what you've done?" Sterling's voice was barely above a whisper. "Do you understand the magnitude of what you've destroyed?" "I understand that you were going to let innocent people suffer for your profit," Marcus replied steadily. "Innocent people?" Sterling exploded. "What about the innocent employees who are going to lose their jobs? What about the shareholders who trusted us with their retirement savings? What about the families who depend on this company? What about the families in Ohio who depend on clean air and water?" Marcus shot back. "What about the children who are fighting cancer because of your chemicals?" The room fell silent. Sterling stared at Marcus for a long moment, then sank into his chair. "You're just a janitor," he said finally. "You push a mop for a living. What gives you the right to make these decisions?" Marcus stepped forward. "I'll tell you what gives me the right, Mr. Sterling. I have a daughter who can barely breathe because of asthma. I work 2 jobs to pay for her medical bills. I know what it's like to watch your child suffer and feel powerless to help." His voice grew stronger. "But I also know what it's like to have a choice. When I overheard your conversation, I had a choice. I could stay silent and keep my job, or I could speak up and risk everything. I chose to speak up because those families in Ohio deserve someone to fight for them." Sterling looked up at Marcus and for the first time really saw him. Not as furniture, not as an invisible worker, but as a human being with convictions and courage. "Your daughter," Sterling said quietly. "She needs medical treatment." "Yes, sir. But that's not why I know." Sterling held up a hand. "I know that's not why you did it. That's what makes this so." He trailed off, unable to find the words. Board Chairman Mitchell cleared his throat. "Mr. Williams, we've been discussing this situation at length. The board has come to some difficult decisions." Marcus braced himself for legal threats, intimidation tactics, or worse. "First," Mitchell continued, "we're removing Jonathan Sterling as CEO, effective immediately." Sterling's head snapped up. "What?" "The board has lost confidence in your leadership," Mitchell explained. "This crisis was entirely preventable. You created this situation through poor judgment and worse ethics." He turned to Marcus. "Second, we're implementing immediate changes to our environmental policies. We're setting aside $500 million for cleanup efforts in Ohio and medical care for affected families." Marcus felt his knees weaken. I don't understand." "Third," Mitchell said, his voice becoming warmer, "we're establishing a new position, Director of Ethics and Community Relations. The job pays $150,000 annually and includes full medical benefits for you and your family." The room spun around Marcus. You're offering me a job?" "We're offering you the job you've already been doing," Mitchell replied. "Looking out for people who can't look out for themselves. The only difference is now you'll be doing it officially." As the board meeting concluded, Sterling approached Marcus. The former CEO looked broken, defeated. "I want you to know," Sterling said quietly, "that I'm not a monster. I got caught up in the numbers, the pressure, the competition. I lost sight of what really mattered." Marcus studied the man who had once seemed so powerful and intimidating. "What will you do now?" "I don't know," Sterling admitted. "But I know what I need to do first. I need to go to Ohio. I need to look those families in the eye and apologize. I need to try to make things right." "That's a start," Marcus said. Sterling extended his hand. "I'm sorry, Mr. Williams. For everything. You showed more courage in one conversation than I've shown in my entire career." Marcus shook his hand. "We all make mistakes, Mr. Sterling. The important thing is what we do next." 6 months later, Marcus sat in his new office on the 40th floor of Sterling Industries. The view from his window showed the city spreading out below, thousands of people living their lives, working their jobs, raising their families. Emma was doing much better. The company's new insurance plan had covered her treatment completely, and she was breathing easily for the first time in years. She'd even started playing soccer at school. There was a knock at his door. Sarah Chin entered, carrying a newspaper. "Thought you'd want to see this," she said, laying the paper on his desk. The headline read, "Ohio Community Celebrates. Cancer Rates Drop 60% After Sterling Industries Cleanup." "It's working," Sarah said. "The cleanup is actually working." Marcus smiled. It's not just about the cleanup. It's about giving people hope again. Speaking of hope, Sarah said, I heard that Jonathan Sterling is personally funding a new children's hospital in Ohio. Marcus nodded. He's trying to make amends. It doesn't undo the damage, but it's something. And the class action lawsuits? Sterling Industries is settling all of them. Fair compensation for everyone affected. No legal battles, no delays. Sarah shook her head in amazement. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were just another whistleblower looking for a payday. What changed your mind? You never asked for anything. Not money, not fame, not revenge. You just wanted to do the right thing. Marcus's story had spread far beyond Sterling Industries. He'd received calls from workers at other companies, people who'd witnessed wrongdoing but were afraid to speak up. He'd started a foundation, the Emma Williams Foundation for Workplace Ethics, to support and protect whistleblowers. The foundation's first case involved a nurse who discovered a hospital was reusing surgical instruments to cut costs. Their second case helped a factory worker expose unsafe conditions that were causing injuries. Each case reminded Marcus why he'd taken that first brave step. Dad, you're on TV again, Emma called from the living room. Marcus joined her on the couch. The news was running a story about corporate accountability, using his case as an example of how one person could make a difference. Are you famous now? Emma asked. I don't think so, sweetheart. I just did what needed to be done. Mom would be proud, Emma said simply. Marcus felt tears well up in his eyes. Yeah, she would be. The Sterling Industries board had transformed completely. They'd implemented new policies requiring all executives to spend time working alongside frontline employees. They'd established worker representation on the board. They'd created anonymous reporting systems for ethical concerns. Most importantly, they'd learned to listen to voices they'd previously ignored. The quarterly numbers are strong, CFO Jennifer Walsh reported during a board meeting. The environmental initiatives are actually saving us money while improving our reputation. More importantly, Marcus added, our employee satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. When people feel heard and valued, they do better work. Chairman Mitchell nodded. Marcus, it's been a year since you joined the board. Do you regret your decision to speak up? Marcus thought about the question. The past year had been challenging. Learning to navigate corporate politics, dealing with media attention, managing his new responsibilities. But every time he doubted himself, he remembered the families in Ohio, the children who could now breathe clean air. No regrets, he said firmly. None at all. One afternoon, Marcus was reviewing environmental reports when his assistant announced a visitor. Jonathan Sterling walked into the office, looking healthier than he had in months. I hope you don't mind the surprise visit, Sterling said. Not at all. Please sit down. Marcus gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sterling looked around the office. The same office where he'd once ruled a corporate empire. It's strange being back here. This place feels different now. It is different, Marcus agreed. The culture has changed. People actually talk to each other now instead of just giving orders. I wanted to thank you, Sterling said suddenly, for what you did. For stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life. Marcus was quiet for a moment. How are things in Ohio? Better. The hospital is almost finished. The cleanup is ahead of schedule. The families, they're starting to trust again. Sterling paused. I know I can't undo the damage I caused, but I'm trying to do better. That's all any of us can do, Marcus replied. I also wanted to tell you something, Sterling continued. Henderson Industries, the company we were trying to merge with, they've hired me as their new director of environmental compliance. They want me to help them avoid the mistakes I made. Marcus smiled. Sounds like the perfect job for someone who's learned from his mistakes. I thought so too. Sterling stood to leave, then turned back. Marcus, that night you came to my office, when you tried to warn me about the Ohio situation. Why did you do it? Why didn't you just go straight to the press? Because I believed you were a good person who'd made bad choices, Marcus said simply. I wanted to give you the chance to make things right. Sterling nodded slowly. I wish I'd listened. You're listening now, Marcus replied. That's what matters. 5 years after that fateful night when Marcus overheard the conversation that changed everything, the transformation was complete. Sterling Industries had become a model for corporate responsibility. The company's stock price had recovered and was now higher than ever. Employee retention was at 95%. Environmental compliance was perfect. But the real measure of success wasn't in the numbers, it was in the lives that had been saved and improved. Marcus stood before a crowd of graduating business students at the local university, delivering the commencement address. Emma, now 13 and healthy, sat in the front row beaming with pride. "I'm not here to tell you how to run a business," Marcus began. "I'm here to tell you how to run a business with your humanity intact." He looked out at the young faces, seeing the future leaders of American industry. "You're going to face moments when you have to choose between profit and principle. The easy choice is always profit. It's measurable, it's immediate, it's what the shareholders want to see. But the right choice is principle, even when it costs you everything." He paused, thinking about his own journey from janitor to board member. "I was a janitor who listened to a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. I could have stayed silent, kept my job, protected my family. But I learned something important that night: we're all connected. The decisions we make in boardrooms affect real people with real families and real dreams." A student raised her hand. "But what if speaking up destroys your career? What if you lose everything?" Marcus smiled. "Then you'll discover what I discovered: that doing the right thing doesn't always lead to the rewards you expected, but it always leads to the rewards you need." Marcus Williams still keeps his original janitor's uniform in his office closet. Not as a reminder of where he came from, but as a reminder of who he still is. He's a father first, a protector of the vulnerable, and a believer in the power of ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Emma is now in high school, captain of the debate team, and planning to study environmental law. She wants to continue her father's work, but in the courtroom instead of the boardroom. Jonathan Sterling's hospital in Ohio treats over 10,000 patients annually free of charge. The cancer rates in the area have dropped to below the national average. The groundwater is clean. Children play outside without fear. Sarah Chin won a Pulitzer Prize for her reporting on corporate environmental crimes. She credits Marcus with teaching her that the most important stories aren't always the ones with the biggest headlines. They're the ones that change the most lives. The Sterling Industries board still meets monthly, but now their meetings include voices from every level of the company. The janitors, the security guards, the cafeteria workers. They all have representatives who speak for them. And sometimes, late at night, Marcus still walks the halls of Sterling Industries. Not pushing a cleaning cart but checking on the people who do. He knows their names, their stories, their dreams. He knows that in a world of corporate towers and billion-dollar deals, the most important people are often the ones who seem the most invisible. The $2 billion merger that never happened saved something far more valuable than money. It saved the belief that one person, no matter how small their title or humble their job, can change the world. Marcus Williams proved that heroism isn't about capes or superpowers. It's about choosing to speak up when everyone else stays silent. It's about protecting the vulnerable when the powerful won't. It's about remembering that behind every number on a spreadsheet is a human being with hopes and fears and dreams. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to listen to your conscience instead of your fear, you can change not just your own life but the lives of thousands of others. The janitor's warning saved more than a corporate merger. It saved the soul of a company, the health of a community, and the future of countless families. And that's worth more than $2 billion.